Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.
Hello, this is Series 11, and we are on the second episode of our World War I sort of thingy, doofer. Just things for you to be aware of. If you go over to Grendel Press, there are some amazing horror writers over there. A great book is The Midnight Labyrinth. It's got a lot of their writers because it's an anthology. So if you give it a go, so go down to the link below in the description. We were on the Old Man Podcast. We had Greg on there with his book Il Lupo, and we had me on there talking nonsense. So you can go and check that out. We'll put a link down below. Apart from that, really enjoy the show. You know, we do like you a lot, and thanks for the support, because it's really, it's just nice, isn't it? It's just nice to be like sort of supported. I'm getting the idea out. Yep, I'll shut up. Bye.
Major Simon de Montfort. That evening, I asked to be given digs at the camp. I had some issues to deal with here. It was not the happiest camp after the retreat and madness of Mons, but it would do. I'd much rather be somewhere alone. No one to disturb me but my horse, but I'm here to do a job. War is often my job. War stirs the shit pot of the occult world, bringing the worst things to the surface. Must be the paranormal energies or some similar unknown nonsense. Who knows? And I wasn't going to use the scientific method to find out. Not when one of the variables is war. Although maybe I could do it on a tiny level, with ants. Create a war with ants. Ridiculous. I'd drunk my coffee and eaten something I think was food before coming back to meet with the private, the werewolf, to hear the rest of his tale. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. I had half a bottle of Bell's Reserve to help me sleep. In this case, I had half a bottle of Bell's to take the edge off whatever this feeling was I was feeling that it made me feel. Oh, I know, Bell's these days doesn't have the best reputation as a blend, but back then it was a very fine drink indeed. I'd met Friedrich Nietzsche at the end of his life. I liked his form of madness. He had many good thoughts. One of them was that drugs and alcohol are a crutch to stop human suffering, and that suffering is needed to succeed. I agreed, but then offered, "You don't need to suffer all the time, do you, old chap?" Private Clarence Smith, an uncommon name followed by a common one, had given me a little clue about what had brought about the werewolf in him. He'd told me about his transformation, and then the butchery that he took part in. I took out my small leather cylindrical case, which held 4 steel cups and a small funnel to refill my flasks. I filled my cup and, as the Americans say, necked it. I refilled it and, I have to admit, begrudgingly offered one to the young man. Well, thankfully he waved it away, saying some absolute nonsense about it being too early or something equally ridiculous.
As I was saying, sir, the angel had brought me some help, and it worked out for me, this giant black wolf ghost thing. It just happened walk through sandbags at Nest and through bodies and what were left at Vickers. It kind of paused when it saw Angel. They looked at each other for some time, and then they did, sir. I'd seen a wolf at London Zoo, but this were bleeding huge.
Carry on, Private.
It was so dark that it soaked up the light of the last evening lamp and then shone it out through its blazing eyes. So I knew I should have been scared, shouldn't I? But I should have been scared, shouldn't I? Shouldn't I? Sir, shouldn't I?
I nodded, not to reassure him, but to get him to continue.
Nothing was said between Angel and Ghost, but I think something was said, because just that I couldn't hear it, what it was that they said, like, didn't it, if that makes sense, like.
Again, I nodded.
Then the big black thing just turned into a choking mist that poured into me. There was rumours about poison gas, and I was wondering if they poisoned me and made me see her in it, like.
He spat the word it.
But now I grew, like, and sprouted hair all over me. I felt my face change shape, and I felt so strong. It was right invigorating. So it was. It weren't painful. It really weren't. It would just.
Invigorating, I said.
The Angel was watching all this with like a strange face. It looked like she was bored. She did. She'd seen this thing happen a lot of times. Like, then the next minute, Ness was full of Jerry and their bayonets. They paused when they seen me. They did. They stopped and stared. The Angel stood up and held a bow of light in her hand. She shot a bit of like lightning at one of the soldiers who was still frozen, and that bit went through him. Missed me by a nut stick, didn't it? Begging your pardon for language. It were right strange to see men hit by lightning arrow. They stood for a while, all just fell to the ground. It were fair strange, sir, when they hit floor. The war went silent for a minute. I didn't know what to do, so I looked up at her and she smiled and directed me to go over the sandbags.
Go and create some hell,
she said before I went in. I wanted to hurt and kill. I wanted to. I really did. I was looking forward to it, sir. That's not good, is it, sir?
Ah, fuck, I said, draining and refilling the cup.
Wing Commander Montgomery Fortescue, yes. Should be retired, but not quite made it yet. The first time I met Simon? Really? Is that something you're interested in? Well, of course I'll tell you. Well, you do know that he's a professor, don't you? Yeah, well, anyway. I met him at Montrose Air Station in 1913. You've never been to or seen a place, have you? Like a patch of wind-blown nothing on the Scottish coast. Sort of place where the mist comes in sideways and the seagulls look like they've been planning something unspeakable for weeks, and rather do the unspeakable to your chip's supper if they get a chance on the harbour. Flying rat bastards. Mind to take the purdies to him. Bloody yoghurt weavers would be in uproar, though. I met a vegan the other day. Mrs. said he had a man bun of all things. Why is it a man bun? It's a bun. Is it not sexist to say that it's a man bun? See, I'm wake, woke, or whatever it is. Anyway, Montrose was the first proper RAF base in the country. Well, it wasn't technically the Royal Air Force back then. Planes were sort of recent and new in the army. We were the Royal Flying Corps. I miss those days when planes were held together with horseshoe, wire, string and hope. So much hope. Good days. The air then smelt of oil, sea salt and the fear of newfangled contraptions we were supposed to fly. Great things to fix, mind. Pliers and a 3/8-inch spanner could sort anything back then. Pilots laugh these days at the wicker basket seats we had. Best kind, in my opinion. Drains easy on the longer flights, if you get a chap's meaning. I was in Montrose to train men to handle those biplanes without sort of decapitating or killing themselves. Basically, would tell them not to touch the spinny round bit at the front and then send them up to learn on the job. If you can control your standard BSA motorcycle, you can fly a plane. Still stand by that to this day. I still have the old Winchester 6-horsepower BSA from the Arms and Ammunition Company. Runs like a dream, I tell you. Well, when it runs, that is. It's done more miles on the back of a recovery lorry, that thing. To be honest. It was a quiet posting, Montrose, back then. Well, it was quiet if you don't count the occasional engine fire and spectacular crash. Lots of crashes in those days, mind. Blame it all on the chap who thought it was sensible just to send them up into the air without any training. Small joke there at my own expense. Still, the word in the Royal Flying Corps was that if you walked away from it, then it was just a heavy landing. And then he walked in on a boding evening. Yes, boding describes it well. Not in a bloody uniform, and not from any century I recognised either. He wore a dark coat, like a shadow had been sewn into the shape of a man. A well-tailored shadowy shape, mind. We used the same tailor back then. Pinky, the wife, now buys my kit from M&S, and Matt and Alan, whoever they are, Matt and Alan are not so bloody good with the tape measure. Never had a fitting there. Why say they know my size? They bloody don't. Keep making my waistline larger on my trousers. Sorry. Oh yes, the professor's sorry. It was his eyes, you know. God help me, they looked like they'd seen every battle since the world was young and hadn't forgotten any of them. Turns out that was pretty damn accurate. Didn't know this at the time, though. Immortality seemed a little unclear, unreal. He didn't say a word, you know, just marched straight past me and onto the runway as if the place belonged to him. I called after him, something along the lines of, "Wait, you! You can't just..." But he ignored me, and he tends to ignore others. I think it's part of his job description, now that there's such a thing as a job description. Then instead of listening to me, he quickly knelt on the grass and muttered in some language that made the old noggin tingle and tasted like dust and candle smoke. I know, words can't taste, but they can if he says them, dash it. I wandered over and realised that he had seniority in this case. I couldn't see any insignia or badges, but I felt that he was the authority. It was rather strange. He drew a neat circle on the tarmac with a vial of glowing water. I'd seen the water fluoresce off the coast of India a while back, you know, and the water he poured looked something like that. I was getting used to seeing strange things after meeting, you know, those, I don't like to talk about them, but Ghost Zeppelin thingies over the splash. Terrible things, I have to admit. Although I thought he was in charge, I did think he was mad, and I wasn't ready to voice it at that time, though. What are you doing, old chap? I asked him, and he stopped and sighed before looking at me with what was, well, slight disdain. He does a good job of conveying disdain, does the man.
If you value your aircraft and crews, you'll want this finished before it arrives.
It? I started, but soon quietened. I didn't have to wait long to find out what it was. The clouds, they came first, not just rolling in, but hunting, thick, black, and moving against the wind. Then the lightning, it wasn't normal lightning, it was alive with claws and teeth and a hunger for wood, fabric, and flesh. A weather wolf, maybe you would say?
You'd better batten down the kites before this thing hits.
He yelled over the wind. What is it? I asked as the winds whipped up. He laughed at the sky. He was bloody enjoying this. Apparently the Germans had sent it. Summoning it was cheaper than building another bloody dreadnought. We fought it. I went up with two others in canvas and string biplanes with a Lewis gun bolted to the nose. He fought from the ground with his relics and water from God's own plumbing. We drove the thing back into the clouds between us, and it hasn't been seen since. Plane BE-2C Reg 205 was... it didn't land, I'm afraid. We lost Lieutenant Desmond Arthur that day. Apparently not only him, but his soul as well. A great loss he was. Good bloke, straight bat, Skittles wizard. When it was all over, we few sat in the mess. I drank whiskey. And when I say I drank, I mean I drank. Several bottles of scotch didn't really help me forget that it. Simon, well, he didn't drink. Oh, don't get me wrong, he held a glass of Glenmorangie. It just did not touch his lips, though. He just stared out of the window at the horizon like it owed him money. That's when he told me his unbelievable tale. His name was Sir Simon de Montfort, and apparently he was the 6th Earl of Leicester. I thought he'd gone mad. Yes, the 6th Earl of Leicester, yes, the one from the 1200s. He was a sinner, and then a crusader, then a man who drank from the Holy Grail and made a bargain with God himself. 2 centuries of fighting evil to pay for the things he'd done, and he had done some... Anyway, he was going to be immortal until the job was done. He became the world's foremost expert on supernatural baddies and those baddies' most dangerous enemy. I thought he had been banged on the head too often listening to this nonsense, but I had to take it for gospel. I had just fought it, the shadowy what's-its, And that night, between the smell of burnt fabric and the taste of sea salt in the air, he invited me to join something new. The Special Occult Service. Save our souls. Now, I admire him. I do admire the man, but, well, the man saved more lives and souls than I can count, but I've seen how he works. He's brutally efficient. He's bloody ruthless, mind. He'll burn down a village to kill the thing hiding in it and not care about the consequences. And then he seems to just be able to walk away without looking back. He says the good of the world is worth any price. I wonder how he defines the good. Perhaps he's right. I am glad I don't have to judge it and can just follow orders. I've always wondered whether centuries of war have stripped away everything human in him. It's often frightening to spend time with him. He is something more. Still, that night at Montrose, with the wind howling and the lightning beast snarling at us, I saw why God keeps him around. Simon de Montfort doesn't just fight the dark. He drags it into the light. He nails it there and makes it scream on its way out.
A German survivor of the Battle of Mons. You want to know what happened at the bridge, Oberlieutenant? Fine. But you won't like it or believe it. I don't like it, nor do I believe it. I am not crazy though, although I might be now. Who knows, I hesitated while I thought about this. The Oberlieutenant started to tap his fingers. I should be mad. No, I am not. I saw what I saw, and I would swear upon my holiest of texts that I saw it. Although it was the opposite of anything holy that I saw. I continued. I would swear I saw what I saw, on the lives of my children. I think I was trying to mentally justify this to myself far more than to the officer. It was evil. The British are evil. They use monsters and magic. They have either angels or demons on their side. Perhaps they have both. But that was no angel from heaven. Or maybe once was of heaven and fell. I spat bitterly. The Oberlieutenant sighed. I smiled at him. We were moving over the bridge in a skirmish line, slow rifles up, boots slick with the rain, and God knows what else. The British had gone quiet. The machine guns just whispers now, the way a man whispers before dying. We had hit their line hard. We thought it would be. We figured they pulled out. We thought it would be easy pickings. That is when we heard it. A new and ungodly sound. A bass tone howl as though a hunt of hell had been released onto the battlefield. Come to think of it, maybe it was that very thing. A hunt of hell. It made me ignore the gunfire. It made me ignore the braying of the beasts as they bolted. I heard no more the symphony of pain from the dying men. All I could focus on was that noise. No, noise is too simple a word. I will try to describe it to you, Oberlieutenant, so you can add it to your notes. It was a sound like a church organ dropped down a well. Deep und wet. Hungry. You see now, Oberlieutenant, how easy this is not to describe. I laughed at this. Und then it was there. A man. No, not a man, tall as 2 men, fur blacker than coal smoke, eyes like a forge fire. Ah, but no, I did not need to see it to know it was there. You could smell it before you saw it. Iron and blood. And something that made your bones want to crawl out from your skin. I know, blood and death were all around. How could I tell its smell from the abattoir I stood in? I know not, Oberlieutenant, but I could. Ein stench of promised death, not death already given. Of course. We shot it. I swear to you, Herr Oberlieutenant, we shot it until our barrels glowed. Bullets hit. I saw them hit. And it just didn't care. It shook them off like raindrops. And it just kept on coming. Kessler, little Kessler from Cologne, poor bastard, was first. Only one swipe it took, and his head was gone. Just gone, like someone had kicked a melon off a table. The officer just wrote, no reaction from him. Are you listening to me, Oberlieutenant? It was a moment of anger that was short and regretted, as the man smiled but did not lift his eyes to mine. Kessler's head burst, I went on, my anger only just under control. Don't you care, Oberlieutenant? I asked with a sad tone. Still no reaction apart from him tapping the end of his pencil on the desk, waiting for me to continue. Kessler's coated the thing. It paused for a while in the chaos to lick its fingers like a man would lick grease from his fingers after good meat. This did not have the effect that I expected on the man. He just flicked over the page of his notebook and nodded his approval, I think. Mein Fury had gone. Und then it let go of its rage with a roar that was more deafening than a field gun and howitzers. Sir. Still no reaction from the damned man. He just sat and wrote in his little pad. His face was an emotionless mask. At least he could offer some form of disbelief. I could rail against that. Show me some emotion. You. It then went back to the killing it was enjoying. It bit down into Francis' shoulder, chewed through it like a bread crust, gulping lumps down with evident pleasure. Men screamed, but the thing didn't roar again. It just breathed heavy like it was enjoying the pleasures of fresh flesh. It tore through us like we were paper dolls. I saw Jürgen split open, his intestines unbound and spilling from him to the floor. They landed like twisting, bloody worms. A young soldier to the left of the Oberlieutenant groaned his disgust. Or was it that his stomach was trying to empty itself? And He was still screaming as it ground his guts into the mud with a foot. No, a clawed, a claw, I don't know. It ripped and rended, stepping over him, sir. Why did it not kill him? Why did it just move on? This was not right. The Oberlieutenant looked at me, met my eyes, brought the end of the pencil to his lips. I thought that he was going to speak, and then he just shrugged and took the pencil back to his notebook. I could feel that my mouth hung open. I felt... Mueller emptied a full clip into its mouth, and it bit his arm clean off, elbow to the wrist, and tossed it away like a rotten thing. Then the monster just left him. It continued past poor Mueller. Poor Mueller, who screamed as he lifted that stump to watch the life pump out from the wound. Does this name not bother you, Herr Oberlieutenant? Mueller was 18 years old. God damn you. I thought that this time I had gone too far. The officer reached inside his jacket in a professional manner. I thought this was the end for me. The weapon would be pulled, and I would be silenced by a single shot. I watched. Time slowed. Then sped up once more as he brought out an oval flask, drinking from it gratefully and resealing it with care. The man briefly looked at the metal flask thoughtfully, rubbing his thumb over some inscription and smiling before replacing it in his inside pocket. I did not know what to do, so I continued with my story. Mueller fell and was silent. We were slipping on blood, tripping over pieces of each other. And the beast, it never stopped. Just kept ripping, chewing, spitting bone, swallowing flesh. Men were dying. I was hiding. I felt like a coward. But how could I fight that? It was not something I could hurt, never mind kill. I carefully crawled in the mud under the bridge and stayed there, praying, shivering with cold while it finished its foul task. When I came out, the river was full of bits of my friends, turning slowly in the current like scraps of black cloth. Some parts I sickeningly recognized. I dropped into ein hush. This monologue had exhausted me. And at this moment, I stayed silent. After some time, the officer with no name other than Oberlieutenant must have thought I had finished my story. He closed his notebook and passed it to the private next to him, who passed him his great coat in return. As he stood, the officer pushed the chair out beside him. It scraped the wood off the floor. You think the wolf is the first of it, Herr Oberlieutenant? The man froze. You think that was the first of it? I laughed. Nine. That was just the start. The officer put the chair back at the table, passed his jacket back to the private, and received his notebook gratefully in return, still without speaking. He sat again, straightening his trousers carefully before settling. Once ready on a fresh page, he nodded at me with a smile indicating that I should continue. I didn't see her at first, Herr Oberlieutenant, not until I stood up from the mud, knees shaking, piss, warm, in my trousers. The wolf had gone further down the bridge, tearing men apart like toys, and that is when I saw her, as she rose up onto the sandbag defenses. She wasn't like any woman I had ever seen before. Beautiful, yes, like the Madonna painted by a drunk saint, but there was something behind it. Something sharp, like she was carved out of terror itself. Her hair was black as a raven's wing, eyes red, bright enough to burn the dark right out of the sky. And in her hands, God help me, was a bow that looked like it was strung from a line of pure starlight. The Oberlieutenant removed his cap and smoothed his greased hair, giving me a look that I could not read, and again took notes. She pulled it back on the bow that is, and the air went wide around her. The first bolt she loosened hit Sergeant Weber in the chest, and he didn't fall. He just vanished, and he was gone. 1 second he was there, the next he was a cloud of hot ash drifting down into the mud. And the noise of that impact was most chilling. It was like being inside a lightning strike. Maybe she was using lightning. Maybe she was. I don't know what she was. I was lost in thought for a moment as to what the woman had been. She fired again, and every man she struck turned to nothing but smoking bones or dust, or both, that the wind simply took from us. The lack of screams, the lack of anything but the noise of the strike. At least she was quick, I suppose. I feel that her targets didn't feel any pain. What do you think, Oberlieutenant? Did they feel any pain? There came no reply. What do you think she was, Oberlieutenant? No reply again. Just that look of... how could I sense what that look was? A mixture of weariness and resignation. She made it... It is such a small word to use for what she did, but she did make it look like a form of art, Oberlieutenant. Some of our brave boys managed to get close, bayonets ready. What were they thinking? They had at her, honestly, the bravery of them. Or was it madness? I looked at the man for an answer, but he just continued his writing. I was not annoyed at him anymore. I just accepted that he was not going to speak. That's when the bow shimmered, twisted in her hands and became the sword. Ein blade made of fire so bright I could not look straight at it. The man stopped at this and tapped his teeth with the pencil again before uttering one word.
Lucifer.
And got back to writing with a beaming smile. She then skipped gracefully down off those sandbags like a dancer, cutting men apart. I was frozen, watching. I could not move. I admit to you, it was mostly fear that held me rigid, but I also believe it was fascination. Limbs flew, blood sprayed in hot arcs. She didn't grunt, didn't shout, just smiled like she was at a summer picnic. She was incredible to watch. She seemed to know where the men would strike or at which point they would shoot, because whatever they did to attack her, she was just not there. I did not explain myself well. How do I say this? A man would stab with a bayonet. She did not respond to the attack. She did not block it or slip out of its way. No. She just was not where he stabbed. It looked like a dance that she knew, but the men did not know. It looked, what is the damned word? Choreographed. The wolf roared somewhere down the bridge, chewing at the last of the men. She stood there, looking at the ashy ground, a bitter smile on that dreadfully beautiful face. She was lit by the glow of fire. Her hair whipped in the wind that now blew, the fiery sword dripping molten drops onto the mud. She was so much more terrifying than the wolf thing. She looked at me, she looked directly at me, and it hurt. She was only a few steps away. She could have easily. You know. I thought she was from heaven, maybe. The officer shocked me as he laughed openly at this. I wanted to believe she was. But why would God send her against the righteous? We are the righteous, are we not? The officer gave me a brief dismissive look before returning it to the pad as though I had spoken nonsense. But now, lying here in this bed, smelling the burnt skin in my memory, I am not so sure heaven sends things like that to men. I had no more to say. I looked up at the officer, who was now staring at me and sucking at the pencil like a cigarette. It looked strangely out of context, and I gave him a shrug. That is my story, I mumbled. He withdrew the pencil and looked at me as though he was trying to make up his mind about something. He nodded and smiled at me, which I took for his thanks. He passed his notebook and pencil back to the standing private. The private offered him the coat as he stood, but the Oberlieutenant refused, getting to his feet to tidy his jacket and smooth his own trousers. Once this and obviously practiced procedure was done, he went right back to staring at me in silence. It was, I must admit, most disconcerting. After some time, he cocked his head to the left, straightening his moustache on that side with his left hand. He did the exact same thing on the right before he offered me another nod and reached for his gloves. They hung from the pocket of the greatcoat, filled it over the private's arm. He paid them a lot of attention as he put them on. Once happy, he again turned to me and slowly reached down to his belt, to the holster, where he carefully undid the clip, and he brought out ein Reichsrevolver. He lifted the barrel of that gun towards mine head und
Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.